Who said that?
As always, I have quotes for you. First one is someone different than the second one. First one is, the secret to being your best you is that you are already your best version of yourself. The goal isn't to chase potential. It is to realize in any given moment you are your best you, and therefore potential dies. Regret is a product of the past. Potential lives in the future. But gratitude means living peacefully in the now and being okay with you today. Right? And the second quote is, I learned a long time ago the wisest thing I can do is be on my own side, be an advocate for myself and others like me.
I like both of those people.
Gonna be a good one. We're back with another episode of Pie Talk.
Pie Talk is pursuing internal evolution.
We're back.
Nice to see everybody.
The big 2-0. Pie Talk Podcast, episode 20. It's your boy B. Willis with my co-host
Priscilla Z. Nice to have all of you here today. We're representing Pie Talk, as you know. Pie Talk stands for Pursuing Internal Evolution, which is something we all do every day, regardless of our willingness. But it's nice if you are willing to throw in some intentions while you do it. And so we really are on the pursuit of our own internal growth, sharing that with all of you, learning from all of you, and then also just seeing really how our whole community is internally working on their growth all day, every day.
And please pay it forward. Like, subscribe to our channel, share with somebody who might be interested in some of the concepts you've heard on this episode or our prior episodes.
Yeah.
Stay tuned, right?
Another thing that I know that everyone has noticed is we have some prison to peer interviews that have been out and about, and it's really cool to see how the engagement has really flourished and prospered. And it's also cool to see all the people that are reaching out to us in hopes of getting their interview done. So thanks for your participation in that. And do you have anything to say on the new interviews?
Shout out to all the people that are involved in being interviewed and being vulnerable and sharing your story of hope and resilience, because, you know, what is peer without your stories, right? And so the fact that, you know, people are able to link up with me and get interviewed and have all kinds of questions asked of them, from their childhood, through their addictions, through their prisons, through their mental health barriers, whatever the case may be. Like, so far, everyone has been completely open and vulnerable, and it shows. There's been a lot of views and a lot of feedback, and I definitely appreciate that. So
I'm like, the other thing that I've noticed too, and it's just something that I think all of us deserve to have, but when you share your story, you get a sense of validation. And you get to feel like you are proud of your story, no matter where it began, because where it is now is really vastly different. Like the quote was speaking that we shared at the beginning, you know, the past is where you can live in regret. And that's not really some place that we need to live. We don't need to live in regret. It's, of course, nice to touch base and share a little bit on it, but it's really cool to talk about what's happening now, and it's nice to hear that.
It is. So shout out to everybody who's been leaving comments, who's been engaging in not only the YouTube page but all the Facebook posts. We really, really appreciate your support, and I'm sure the people that are telling their story are feeling quite uplifted, and like their story does serve a purpose, because a lot of people have said that they were very inspired by these stories. And as long as they keep coming in, as long as people are willing to get interviewed and share their stories of triumph over adversity, I'll keep meeting up with them and interviewing them. So
Yeah, I also love this is kind of just something that's really fun for me that I've noticed. But I like to call them like day walkers. But there's a lot of people in your community that you look at today as being prestigious, honorable, full of integrity, and they are the leaders of all of the places that do the best and finest work in town. And some of them have some pretty gritty stories, and so it's kind of cool to see the perspective, and to also just see that life happens, and sometimes that story can be a little dark, and it's okay because it sure does seem to turn into a lot of prosperous gratitude. It's kind of what pi is all about, that pursuing the internal evolution.
It's the journey.
It's the journey, and then the outcomes are really cool. So
that they are.
I love it. I'm like, fan engagement. We do need to say thank you to a lot of the people that follow us. And I mean, like Star, thank you so much. I know we've talked about you before, but it's really nice to be able to have your support and your encouragement. Same thing with Sarah. Sarah actually, she like sometimes she like waits and doesn't watch them, and then she goes through them, and not too long ago she like rallied through a bunch of them, and she was like, okay, I need another one, go, come on, quick, because she had made it through quite a bit of them, which I thought was pretty fun. But thank you guys big time for being a part of that and encouraging us. It's nice to have that feedback and support. Our last episode was about motherhood and generational wealth. I wonder if anybody is out there with anything to say about that towards us in their regards to their own internal evolution. On our page, it did say that there's someone that says, reach for the sky. They were talking about all of this with their daughter. So it was kind of cool to see that it was a relevant topic of today. And then it says broken soul. I don't know exactly who that is, but she said, yes, coupons are amazing. And I just want to shout out to that because I am still on my coupon rocking and it is fun. Saving money and being like the old lady mom actually can be really cool. It can be a fun thing to be. I like being a cheapskate like my mother.
Big win. What's your big win today? This week?
Well,
or since the last episode. We'll just go with that.
My big win, and this was kind of a weird one, but I loved it personally. I have a family member whom I have gone in toxic circles with, of engaging in trauma cycles, trauma bonding. Usually it's because I'm always fighting to share my opinion. I'm always fighting to prove my side or to show the other person what I value and why I have so much energy or passion behind it. And I sat with this person multiple times and I just chose silence. I didn't care to explain myself. I didn't need to validate my opinions through expressing them to this person and having them say anything about it. I didn't really care about any of their opinions about me, even in the dead conversations that were occurring.
So you weren't taking things personally?
Nothing, not an ounce of anything. And there were even things that were personal slights and personal attacks. And I did not give a hooey. I really didn't care. And it was so nice to just sit there and be okay in those moments with not needing to defend myself or not needing to like put on theatrics or engage in drama or perpetuate the cycles of the conversations that we've had over and over and over and over that all ended the same way.
That's a huge win.
It was gigantic. And to be really real with you, because like this is like a candid side to it, and I talked about this in the parenting class that I facilitate, but like it didn't mean that like I didn't have feelings. Like I wasn't sitting there numb. Like of course, like I had all sorts of thoughts in my head and all sorts of things that I could have shared, but it wasn't a safe place for me to engage in. It wasn't a place that I was going to make a productive state of growth from. I would have gone backwards to things that I've done time and time again. And I knew that that wasn't the resolution that I wanted.
If I may.
Yeah.
So what it makes me think about is emotional regulation.
Oh man,
is not about not feeling.
100%.
It's about actually emotional regulation is not really about regulating emotions at all. It's about regulating your responses externally to big feelings.
100%.
So when people talk about, oh, this person's really emotionally intelligent, it really, to me, in my opinion, value that how you will. It just means that a person is able to feel big feelings and not do something that they're going to regret about those big feelings in the moment of those feelings, right? It's acknowledging those feelings internally, but not causing harm externally. Big win for both of us. I'm so proud because that tells me you're finally right
doing the
thing.
thing.
You got it, because it's not your narrative.
No.
When you take ownership of somebody else's narrative, that's when you bring poison into yourself.
Right. And it was saving the both of us. So it wasn't just like I was not engaging in like creating toxic feelings for that person, but I also didn't get re-injured, re-triggered, re-traumatized by situations, because I'm not trying to, two things can be right at the same time. That person's story can be right, my story can be right. Do we need to duke it out and share? Nah, we don't really need to. And to be really real with you is when I went to like my parenting class with people who are all willing to be listeners, be active listeners, and who can't take that stuff personally because it's not about them. I got to share how I really felt. I got to say, oh, yeah, and of course I was thinking these things, or of course I didn't agree with that person for this, that, and the other. And I got to get it out of my system. But I will say, my sister and I, we call it the buzz, but like it's when you're like thinking about something and it consumes you, and then you're having conversations, you're having dialogue. We call it dialogue. You're having dialogue with people, conversations with people you are never going to have because it's never going to get you anywhere. And you're just sitting there circling and circling on these conversations that are pretty much petty and worthless. And then your whole day is consumed. And then that day turns into a week magically. And a week later, you're still talking about fake conversations with someone and it's none of your damn business. And so this was like a really cool way of like just being present, being okay with whatever it was. But I guess my internal cause or my internal drive wasn't to prove anything to anyone.
So what's your big takeaway from this big win?
I would say that, like he was saying about emotional regulation, my sister Betty calls it being in control of your emotions. I would say that the freedom of being in control of your emotions and being able to emotionally regulate in the moment, and then the aftermath of what that can create, is possibly one of the greatest feelings in the world.
Yes.
And it creates like a way. I'm not gonna say. Oh, I could say. I like you. Like feel like you got a little monk status. You got a little meditation status. Like you've somehow figured out a way. You could be in any place, anytime, in the most conflict ever. People could be spitting in your face, and you don't really have to take that in, and you don't really have to participate. And that freedom of being able to be okay with who you are and how you feel, and to not let your adrenals rise, and to put toxicity into your system, and then for that to like doom the rest of your environmental experience or your feelings after you leave the situation. It's really freeing. It's the coolest feeling in the world. And I think it's kind of like a muscle. I don't think that like I haven't been able to do this. I think I've been doing it. I've been pumping the weights and doing the mental push-ups. Mm-hmm. And right now I'm bulked up. Yeah. Like my muscles are really strong. I'm feeding them the right things. I can do a mental push-up with ease.
Well, think about when we talked about the private reality versus the public reality. The private realities that we all live with, we can share by sharing our stories with words. But nobody gets to experience your private reality except for you. Your public reality are the things you do that make it public. So when you react in a certain way where you're not emotionally regulating your actions that the emotions can lead you to doing, instead of raising your voice or engaging in an argumentative situation, and you're being calm and you're listening and you're just letting someone talk about their private reality and not take ownership of it, then you don't create a public reality of negativity for both of you.
Right. I would also say too, and I know everybody out there can connect with this, but like I can get dirty. Whew.
Can't we all?
I can say some mean and nasty things. I usually have them in my back pocket, ready to slap on the table. That's easy.
It is.
It's super easy to do that. And it's almost like I felt like my brain was like, Priscilla, aren't you outgrown that? Like, it's like kind of, it's weak to go in that back pocket and pull out the dirty card. It felt a lot better to sit there and do some more emotional push-ups and be like, you know what, I'd rather bulk up right now. I'd rather get smarter and stronger in myself and my own capacity to regulate than get dirty. And I think that we can all do that. I mean, in a million different situations in our life, we are constantly pressed with people who are different. You know, I just recently talked with someone, Sarah Jane. She's a really cool lady that I talk to often, that I kind of work and correspond with. And like, there's this test or this study, and it shows like rats in a cage. And there's like 200 rats or something like in the cage. And they're all doing their little rat race, kind of like we all do around each other. We're all running around, swarming around. And eventually they all just start to not like each other. And then eventually they start to attack each other because their environment is too tight. They're all different entities. They all want different things, have different needs, and they're not really meant to be confined in this small, tight space as 200 little energies all together.
Sounds like prison.
Exactly. And then they start to go at each other. And like, we kind of right now in our society, like when you're at a public school and you got all the public school moms, every last mom in the mom group came from a different background, has a different type of husband, has a different family structure, maybe doesn't have a husband. There's so many different types of energies. And so are all the moms supposed to meet at the playground and get along? You know, but can you go to the playground with everybody and feel okay? Can you feel grounded and safe? Can you have a good time? Can you enjoy watching the kids play? Like, you can do a lot. And this could be applied to work. This could be applied to when you're with your family and friends. Like on the freeway, great example. Like, you get to honk and flip off the person and bring all that energy into your car, or laugh and ride away.
Turn up your music. Enjoy the ride.
Yeah, and I just think it's a lot better for your soul and your overall energy to let it ride and turn up the music and do what makes you feel good. So
yeah.
What's your big win?
Dually, I'd say between now and the last episode, I have obtained the designation of recovery coach professional. And barring no barriers, by the 18th, I will be a recovery coach professional facilitator, able to facilitate and train the Recovery Coach Academy.
Big win.
Big win. And also on the same type of wavelength of energy, I was told yesterday by the healthcare authority that I am also, my mentorship has completed and I am officially a certified peer counselor trainer in the state of Washington.
Wow.
So those are all big wins, you know, and I get to go into Walla Walla State Prison at the end of June for a week and train certified peer counselors while they're incarcerated, giving them hope and a chance to step right into the field upon release. So their reentry looks a lot brighter.
Sounds like a really big emotional flex. Lots of growth.
But yeah, I'm honored. I'm humbled. It's been an amazing journey, and it continues to be one. The people around me are awesome, super supportive. All the mentors that I have in my space are very knowledgeable and communicate very well. They're great active listeners, supporters, and encouragement.
Yeah.
You know, like it's all about highlighting strengths and adding more tools to my toolbox to allow me to become who I am today. Like I already essentially am the best version of myself, and I'm just taking this stuff one day at a time.
I love that. I also think it's kind of interesting. He says it's his big win. But I just keep seeing, like, from a visual land, the trickle effect of all the people that you will be able to affect. And that's a big win for a lot of people around you. That's a big win for the community. And for people who might not know that they get to big win too. I think you're going to open the door for a few people at least.
Right. Which leads us into the topic of our episodes, or topics, or direction in which our conversation will go, because nothing's ever scripted. No. We come up with a title and then we think, all right, let's talk about that.
Yeah. So even the title, when we debrief about things, we change it. We still don't really like. There's no construct to what we're gonna do. It's almost like Picasso artwork type brainstorming. It's like splatter words, and I never know what the hell he means all the way. And I don't think he ever knows my perception either. And then we get together and we're like, fa-fa, fa-fa, fa-fa. And
yeah, we're really in the bakery. We just put in the ingredients and we bring out dope ass pie, right? So the title of today's episode is By Whose Authority? The Power of You. Now, what's that bring to mind for you?
I know, it's kind of funny too, because I wasn't coming loaded with my big win for the topic. That just actually was my big win. But it's taken me a long time to learn this, and I am my own authority. And now I'm going to tell you guys a little story, and I wasn't planning on telling this, but it's fun, and it goes back to the things that I believe in, which is metaphysics. I believe in the metaphysical world, and I believe that through every ailment in the human body, or everything that happens in your working system, there's usually a thought process that comes behind it. So one thing that I could share that's like a quick and easy one is like eczema. Eczema, when kids get eczema, if you ever notice it, kids will get it like right in between their elbows, okay? And so if you think about that, eczema is explosive thoughts, and your elbow represents a change in direction, okay? And so kids, like in kindergarten, they're going into the first grade and they start getting a little eczema on their elbows, and it's because they're having explosive little itchy thoughts about the change in direction that they're about to head in. And their body kind of manifests a physical ailment or a dis-ease, which is a dis-ease of the body. A disease is a dis-ease of the body. And so one time I learned a great lesson in authority, and my body got to learn the lesson for me to make sure that my brain would register what the hell was going on. So I was working for an employer who was suffering greatly from mental health issues. This person had struggled from mental health issues their entire life, and they were very successful. And they filtered in their really cool parts of their brain into their business and all those things. But a lot of the stuff that came with it was control. They wanted to control a lot of things that they probably should not have been trying to control. One of those things that they wanted to control was me. I was somebody who was a big people pleaser. I was always trying to go above and beyond to be liked or loved or accepted. And so I was a prime candidate for somebody in that position to come in and try to control. And I used to wear the victim crown of joy very well. And so this cycle was occurring, and it was getting really bad. And so I decided to take a vacation from that job and go to Colorado. And I wore a backpack and some rubber boots. And the rubber boots play a big role in a little bit. And anyways, I didn't feel like I could leave for the vacation because I felt like I would get in trouble by the employer. I felt like I would let that person down because they needed me to do things back at the job, even though realistically, anybody at any job can be replaced in a few seconds. So that's a weird disillusion that was occurring. And I had guilt for leaving, and I was sitting there on this vacation, and I was thinking about how this employer still controlled me and was essentially my authority, and that I couldn't even enjoy myself on a vacation that I was allowed to take, that I was paid to take, because I was still letting this person rule my mind. And I walked up the stairs, I repeat, and I broke my leg. My bone snapped right where I walk. From my foot straight up, I got a spiral fracture. And I read in my book, it's by Louise Hay, it's called Heal Your Body. And when a bone breaks, it means that you have a problem with authority. So I was struggling so much with this problem with authority that I literally had a bone break and snap. And then I had to figure out how to manage life, work that job on a little scooter with a horn, making fun of it, of course, because it was kind of fun in that way. But I had to really learn how to get in control of what was happening. And the affirmation for a broken bone and having a problem with authority was, I am my own authority. And that was the first time I really had to start the walk and the lesson of understanding that I am the only one that is truly in control of how I feel, what I think, and then the actions that I take to either protect myself or navigate where and when I'm going to be and why. And instead of playing victim like I have in the past, I began the journey of realizing that the only person that was going to change my life or the outcomes of my life was going to be me. Now, this was probably like chapter 3, maybe, of learning that I'm my own authority. And I'm probably at like chapter 27 right now. So it's a progressive journey.
No, it is. And it's perfect. It segues right into a dialogue that has been running in my mind since we started to debrief about this topic, right? The first thing is the 6th agreement on a blueprint to recovery agreements, which is, although I may have been a victim, today I am not a victim, and I will not victimize anyone in the process of my healing journey, right? So this leads me to a plethora of thoughts and things that come to mind, and things that I personally believe about recovery. One of which, a couple words come to mind, is you think of recovery. I personally think of remember and repair, right? So when we think about repairing something, whether we'll just use a mechanic as an example, right? A mechanic can't repair a car if they first don't know about the car.
Right.
So that's why there's schools and there's trials and tribulations and there's mentorship. Some mechanics are just taught by their parent or their uncle or friend, right? Experience, right? But they have to first learn the thing. And then they use their memory from what they learned about the car in order to diagnose and repair, right? So we have to first choose to study that which we want to repair, right? Recover. What is recover, right? First, you have to discover something. And then we lose it, right? So in order to find what was lost, we have to remember and we have to recover. Where does that start? So first, discover before attempting to recover. Think about that. Who's the authority over your identity? You are, right? When we talk about words and the etymology of words, the power behind words, the first words that are introduced to us that matter to us are our names. The first words that have power over us are our names, because our names, a lot of times, I can't speak for every single culture or parenting situation, but in my experience, names are given while still in the womb. While life is being created and thoughts are being formed and the life is growing inside the belly of the nurturing mother's womb, a name is given, and that name is heard throughout that process, right? So think about it. If you can remember or study yourself, get to know yourself, starting with the power attached to your name. So I'll use myself as an example. My name is Bilal, Billal. And as I was growing up, my mom would tell me in one sentence that my name meant first true believer, right? I had no idea what those words meant other than that one sentence. There is a cartoon movie out called Bilal. If you watch that movie, which I did within the last couple of months as an adult with my kids, and I thought, that's who I was named after. And my mom said that's who I was named after. So the story about that person in that cartoon depiction is the very person from the Quran that I was named after. No, we are not Muslim. That was just the names that our parents chose, right? So when I think about these things and I think about the power that my name has held within me,
yeah,
throughout my life,
oh yeah,
when it comes to self-advocacy and authority, I've always questioned when somebody said, "You're this, you're that, you must do this." The back of my mind, and mind you, I was diagnosed as oppositional defiant disorder, right? For challenging by whose authority do you get to create my identity? By whose authority do you get to say that I'm a felon as an identity, that I'm an addict as an identity, that I'm an alcoholic as my identity? You don't. I am what I agree to, and so are you. If you agree to and you take on the identity with your own authority, then you become that. You are your own authority on your life, on your identity. And when you look into your name, what it means, where it comes from, ask your parents if you don't already know what the thoughts, what was the energy and the thought behind naming you what they named you. Find that out, because that is one of the first pieces in studying the thing that you may one day have to repair. I'm not saying that everybody watching this believes that they need to recover from something, right?
Yeah.
We all experience different levels of trauma, and some of us navigate those easily. Some of us, it takes years. But if you want to have the tools to someday, if needed, recover, repair, remember who you are, start with your name and then pass that on. If you have children, think about the energy, the thought process behind the name you gave your children, so that if they come to you asking, you remember who this being is that you had envisioned when you created this life. Because somebody created life for you and they gave you a name with a purpose, with a power, because words do matter. Words have power. Words can heal. Words can harm. Words can destroy. Words can send somebody from suicidal ideations to completion of suicide. Words are potent and they are powerful, and that is why we speak in terms of pi, of positive energy, growth, development, honoring people, being trauma informed. All of that is not only pure, it's human. The ability to see somebody where they're at, to acknowledge them for who they are. If you know somebody's name, and I don't know how many of you watching have ever really been into the folklore or the fantasy world where they talk about the wizards and the magic, but in almost every version of every type of magical spell or anything, knowing somebody's full name gives you power over them.
Absolutely.
It's the craziest thing, right? Because the beginning of the authority of self mastery, of controlling your emotions, and controlling the actions that your emotions can lead to. Anger stress management is a big part of that, which we are both anger management specialists. We are both recovery coaches. You soon will be a certified peer counselor, right? The beauty of this podcast is everybody's ideas matter. I can only share my stories and my personal beliefs about what it means for me to pursue internal evolution, how I get through a thing, how I advocate for myself, how I stand against something that feels strongly like an injustice that is being pushed upon me. When something externally tries to take ownership of my narrative and my story, I automatically feel resistance to it because I am the authority over who I am, over what I am, over where I'm going in my life, and what matters to me the most. And so are you.
Yeah. I was like, this is really interesting because, I mean, B and I met 6 months ago. And when I first met B, these are the concepts that he started to speak to me about. And it really was the keys to unlocking a lot of like my own self-respect and salvation, how I saved myself through a lot of this. And it's kind of funny because I'm sitting here listening to him and I feel like I'm listening to a podcast. And I'm like, and I'm like sitting down. I'm truly enjoying every word that you just said. I feel like all of that was so valuable, and I hope everybody listened to what he just said. And if you want to right now, I might even rewind it to where he started speaking and listen to it again and let it really sit and resonate in you, because you don't want to ever allow your power and your own authority of self be taken by anybody. And it makes me think of this concept of your parents. And when you're in trouble with your parents, they, in like these magic games, I never thought about this before, but like my name, they would say Priscilla Marie Zal. Like an incantation,
and it would
like,
freeze you, right?
Yes, and you're like dead stop. Like they hold all the power over your existence. And I've even seen it where like women will say their husband's full name when they're like really trying to get their attention in like a public space or whatever, and the male will be like and do the same thing like when he was a kid with his mom. So it's like, it's wild because I do think that there is huge value into what's in your name.
Well, think about it. I spent half my life in prison, right?
Yeah.
And the prison culture is to never use your government name.
Right.
People will get, in prison culture, they will get offended to the point of starting a physical altercation if you call them by the name that's on their prison ID and not one of the handles that they use or go by.
Right.
It is like something that you protect. But ironically, when you get into society, you share your name with honor.
Right.
You tell people your name. You know, you introduce yourself as your name.
Yeah. My dad used to tell me that he would say that I am an INC, I'm an incorporation, and that Priscilla Marie Zal was the name of my incorporation, and that I had sublets, I had other businesses that all ran underneath me: school, family, friends, hobbies. Those were all sub businesses to the incorporation, which is Priscilla Marie Zal.
See, there's a thing in the United States called the Uniform Commercial Code.
Yes.
And what your dad was doing was instilling bits and pieces. He
was military. He knew exactly what was up.
Yeah, he was instilling bits and pieces of what it means to pursue sovereign and to be a citizen.
Yes.
Because our names is, I'm not going to get into all that.
It's a big thing. It goes right down to like, I mean, like when everything is, if you'll ever notice on your birth certificates and any like actual certified documents, your name is actually fully capitalized. Your entire name is fully capitalized because you are actually a business. You are your own business, which is wild. There are other countries where my siblings came that are from Germany, and you can look at their birth certificates and they are not all capitalized. So there is a significant difference in the way that citizens are treated in other places versus where they're treated here. Like you said, it's too deep. We're not going there all the way right now.
But I will say this, just an interesting thing, and you can look into it. I don't want to dig in too deep, right?
There's
but you know when we're going, this is a rabbit hole, but when we're coming up in schools, we're told to use blue ink and black ink only.
Yes.
The reason is because red ink signifies blood, and the only way to actually put your name to a document and it have value and binding control is to sign in blood. Which again, we're talking about the rabbit hole. So
it's a big bunny hole. It's really big. Lots of rabbits jumping in.
So back to pie.
But what I'll go to my name, and I'll go to like kind of what's cool about like the spiritual nature of what's in a name and how sometimes your name picks you and it's for a greater purpose. So my name is Priscilla Marie Zal. Now, my parents did not study etymology in the way that I do, in the depths that I do. They were very educated people, but they didn't sit down and like plot like, oh, I want to name my baby this because it's going to bring them this. And like, I know nowadays a lot of people are way more coherent about the names that they pick specifically because it holds value and meaning and what they want to gift their children. But my name means ancient, white, or women of the water rebellion, which is like the Aquarius movement. So the women of the Aquarius movement, white-haired warrior. My last name is the name of a Persian, basically like regal king who sacrificed his son to turn the tides of major war. His son was albino, which was quite striking. And so, anyways, there's some really interesting things about my name being ancient. I am naturally ancient. I used to own a 1962 Ford Falcon. I like can't stand lights. I can't stand electricity. I'm being real about this stuff. Like this stuff is just something I'm not that into. Computers, technology, like I've made friends with these things, but they by no means are what I believe that the earth and the world should revolve around. I have a very ancient spiritual mindset. I have a very old soul. When I was a little girl, I would say things and people would go, wow, you are such an old soul. And I did not
heard that growing up.
Oh so my Lord. And I didn't even know what it meant when I started to hear it. I was like, okay, sure. You know, and they'd be like, well, the stuff you're saying is unreal, you know? And that came as a part of my birthright, but it wasn't because my parents were like, ooh, let's make a little ancient water rebellion, white-haired warrior. they didn't say that. That's just like what my birthright is. And so the even cooler, interesting aspect is my daughter. And like her name is Zyla. And we wanted a musical name, and it comes from the word xylophone. And some people could think like we're cheesy or whatever, but xylophone broken down is from the wood sound. From the wood being xyla because it's made of wood, and then phone sound is what the wood creates.
And magically, that's where you find fairies.
Right, exactly.
And she does remind me of like a little fairy. She's a tiny with little so much world person. Knowledge.
It's insane. And like she could literally be in the dirt and just be cool for days, just playing in the land of the trees, and like it is just her makeup. And then her middle name is my last name, which is white-haired warrior, and she was a towhead blonde kid, so that's kind of interesting. And then her last name is God Rich. She is God Rich, so a wood dweller, white-haired warrior, God Rich. And I'm like, what is this kid up to? And in our days and times, we probably will live in the woods. She will probably reside in the woods and be this little fun, interesting fairy warrior who is protected by God. And that came out of the ethers. When we found her name, I remember thinking, is that her name? Like, I don't even know if it is. And then people said, when you give birth to her, you'll know. And I gave birth to her and I looked at her and I was like, I still don't know, but that's her name, I guess. And then it wasn't until she was about 9 months old and she did something really interesting while she was playing. And I got goosebumps over my whole body and I kind of freaked out. And I was like, oh my gosh, like it's you. Like there's no other you. That's you. Your name is Zyla. Like that's what you're meant to be. And it wasn't because, again, that I plotted and planned all these things, but like, and I thought I would. I believed in etymology. I thought I would strategically. I wanted to name a kid Zofia because it meant wisdom in Polish. And I thought to give a kid that name would be beautiful. And that just wasn't her name. It just wasn't it, even though I love these words and things. And anyways, it's fascinating. I can go to my sister Betty. I can always use her in this stuff because she's promised not to sue me. So I can talk about her freely. But Betty's name is Betty Elizabeth. And Betty is short for Elizabeth. So technically my parents named her Betty Betty. Okay, they named her Elizabeth.
So she's got double the power.
She named her double the power. And what does that name mean? Oath to God. Her name is Double Oath to God, White Hair Warrior. Holy Betty. And that woman is one of the most morally sound, dedicated to the universal everything, God being good, and all of us. She wants everybody to prosper, even the people that she can't really like stand that much. That woman will bless them with all the love in the world. And I've been baffled by it. Like, I'll never forget, she had like a little interesting thing with like a baby daddy drama situation, and the girlfriend was thinking about leaving the baby daddy, and she was like, no, don't leave him. Like, I need you to be with him so that you could keep him good, like, and so that my daughter has good, stay around, it's good. Like, she wasn't like, oh, that she was never against anybody. She was always for everybody and always positive about everybody. And that's that oath to God dedication. It was just so a part of her being. And so, anyways, I love this concept of names. I think that we all have a beautiful opportunity to engage deeper within ourselves and to see where our roots come from and to identify with, like, what does that really mean to you? And like Betty, actually, last night, she was doing some tarot cards, and she does them not like everybody else. And I used to get mad at her, and I'd be like, that's not how you're supposed to do it.
By whose authority?
Exactly. And that's what she would say. And last night she was doing it. She's like, I don't do reverse cards because I just don't. I don't believe in them. And I was like, but you can't. That's not how it works. And she goes, it is how I work. And then, like, I was like, I know, but you didn't study what that card means. And she's like, it's not about what you study. It's about what you believe. And she was like intuitively looking at each card and saying what each card meant to her. And that was what she went forth expressing. And she actually said that she went to this like voodoo hippie lady or whatever who did cards and things like that. And that's actually what the woman taught her when teaching her how to read cards. It was about trusting your intuition, trusting yourself, your instinct, your own authority. And that would be what would give you the greatest guides to your life experience. So anyways, I just believe that there's a lot to be said into words and to validating ourselves and our own existence. And in terms of pie, and this thought of like pursuing internal evolution, go ahead and dig deep internally into the start of your evolution. Like he was saying, to remember and discover. And it's funny, I talked about a broken bone, because when he was speaking about all of this stuff, I thought about an archaeologist. And I thought about digging up bones, which is funny because the one I broke. But what is the root? And when you go there, find the bone and delicately get it out of the dirt. Resurface the history of what it is. Well, see it and rediscover.
That leads to an analogy about, the bones in our skeletons in our closet, man. Right? That is another form of navigating trauma, is when you're doing this research and you're discovering yourself.
Yeah.
You have to go in and look at all those different bones that you've buried about your past, and then you have to get rid of them.
Yes.
Study them, get rid of them, because the repair work starts right there.
I have such a great story.
That's where the repair work starts. That's where recovery happens. And you can really, really dive into self-discovery.
Yes.
As a means of starting recovery.
Yes, and right? I think you're going to do this, and I promise you guys, because I've watched people live their whole life. I've watched my mother and father live an entire life and then leave Earth. So I've seen now twice, very intimately, what life expects of you. And those skeletons and the bones, they're there. And so I have a little quick story, but my dad, he was really struggling. He was sitting in the van at our house, and him and my mom were at conflict, and I was about 10 years old. And I like really liked my dad. I liked being his friend. So I went in there and I was like, hey dad, what's going on? Like, why are you and mom, like, what's the matter? Like, what's the tea, essentially? And he said, Priscilla, do you know what a skeleton in the closet is? And I go, no, I don't know what that is. And he goes, well, it's like the bones of something, the skeleton of something left behind, and you can try to hide it, and you can try to put it back in the closet, but no matter what, the bones are still there. And then he told me that I had a sister in New York that I never knew about, that the rest of my family essentially did, and that those skeleton bones were coming back and that he had to face them. And so he was starting to create this relationship and learn more about that child and all of those things. And it was hard for him and my mom, and they had to grow and learn about a lot of stuff that had been tucked away because it was a 30-year-old story, you know, and all these different things. But the truth is that he had to face himself and his own history, and he had to touch those bones a little bit before he could really leave the earth. And I think that he was glad that he did touch the bones. And I think actually he would have been even more grateful to have dug even deeper into the discovery and the remembering of what all began and what all got him to where he ended his lifetime. So I like this concept of digging up your bones. It's not a bad thing. And you get to have authority over your own experience when you go back and you identify that history or that story, and then you get to share your perspective of maybe why the bones are in the closet.
Yeah, you get to be the Indiana Jones of your own labyrinths. You get to go in whatever dark caves you want. You get to find whatever's cool in your own private reality and history, but that discovery comes with power and purpose. And it comes with the ability to eventually get to a place where you can really, really self-advocate in everyday life situations. You know, one of the biggest things about being a CPC, about being a peer counselor, is giving somebody the tools to properly self-advocate, to advocate for themselves when somebody else is exerting authority over them and saying they can't or they won't or they shouldn't or they're not allowed, and helping them find their voice, helping them rediscover and remember who they are, because everyone, in my belief, is born with the divine right to basic human needs, to a quality of life, to love, to respect. And I believe the primary duty of somebody that is a recovery coach, a hope dealer, a provider, a certified peer counselor is the preservation of the quality of life. The preservation of life itself. The real currency that we value the most is our energy, our presence. Our presence starts with who we are.
Right.
Who we are internally filters through who everybody else gets to see and experience in the public reality. When those two things are in alignment, there is no such thing as potential. You've killed it.
Mm-hmm. I think that the other thing, too, that this all leads to is when you take this opportunity to dig deeper into those bones and rediscover and own all of these things, just like validating your emotions when you share with somebody or getting validation from another being, you're validating your human experience. Just like when we talk about from prison to peer work, you're validating your experience. And then that opens up a porthole to healing and recovery.
It grows like this tree right here.
Yeah. It's a beautiful opportunity. And like I was saying, I've watched these people live their lifetime, and you're either going to choose to do this now at whatever age you're at, or I promise you before you leave the earth, you will be touching base with these issues before you carry on. We all have this like really interesting journey here, and nothing is, in my view, on accident. It's all kind of a really interesting experience of very valuable lessons that occur. And I believe in like reincarnation. So I believe like I am, and that's why I believe with the ancient, my name being ancient. Of course, I believe in reincarnation. I've been here many times before. And when I was here before, I was gaining beautiful knowledge that was still somehow residing in my soul matter. And that is what came out when I was a 4-year-old. When I was a 4-year-old, those particles within me got to express all of that knowledge freely. And that's why I was called an old soul. My soul had been here before.
Think about it. That is That is amazing. So, for the time being, that is the end of our topic of discussion. Next segment, as you know, we will reveal the authors of Who Said That and get into the second portion of our podcast.
Thanks for finding you.
Who said that?
All right. Who said that? So we got a two-parter today. The first person happens to be a wonderful representative of Pie Talk, but it happens to be B. Willis.
First quote was mine. You'll find it on my Facebook page.
Yeah. Do you want to speak on it at all, or how do you feel?
I believe, the secret to being your best you is that you already are your best version of yourself. And the reason why I said in that quote that therefore potential dies is because personally I believe potential is another way of saying you're not good enough yet, right? So when you can look in the mirror and agree that you are doing your best and that you are operating at the best version of yourself possible, there is no potential.
Right.
You're living in the now. The gratitude that you have for who you are today, it kills potential because potential lives in the future. It cannot coexist in the here and now because it is of its very nature something that you haven't achieved yet.
Yeah, I personally really needed to hear this quote this week. So it's kind of cool. It's like he custom built a quote for me. So I honor that. But the truth is that a lot of the times when I get in my headspace, I am always thinking about the future, which is something that has nothing to do with right now, today. And that the most opportunity that I have to change, grow, and develop is to honor myself today. And then to do whatever I need to do for myself today in order to live my best day and experience life at its fullest. So I really, really love the quote. The second quote was from a beautiful leader in advocacy for self and others, which is Maya Angelou. Maya Angelou, who was born Marguerite Annie Johnson, was born on April 4th, 1928, and lived until May 28th, 2014. They were an American memoirist, poet, and civil rights activist. She published 7 autobiographies, 3 books of essays, several books of poetry, and is credited with a list of plays, movies, and television shows spanning over 50 years. She received dozens of awards and more than 50 honorary degrees. Angelou's series of 7 autobiographies focus on her childhood and early adult experience. So it says the first, I Know Why the Caged Bird Sings, 1969, tells of her life up to the age of 17 and brought her international recognition and acclaim. And so right in the honor of like everything that we talked about today, touching base to those bones, sharing those stories, going back and then deciding what it is truly that you're going to advocate in order to own your own life and experience is exactly what this beautiful human represents. And I think that if anything, she chose to live her life to lead others in an example of honoring herself. So she wasn't telling anybody to be me. She was just saying, this is who I am, and I like being this way. And I think that led many other people to start to believe in who they were and to like who they were as well. Some other quotes that she said is, if you don't like something, change it. If you can't change it, change your attitude. I've learned that people will forget what you said. People forget what you did, but people will never forget how you made them feel. Nothing will work unless you do. Try to be a rainbow in someone's cloud. Courage is the most important thing of all the virtues, because without courage, you can't practice any other virtue consistently. You can practice any virtue erratically, but nothing consistently without courage. It is time for parents to teach young people early on that in diversity, there is beauty and there is strength. When someone shows you who they are, believe them the first time.
Right. Thank you. Ooh.
Yeah, she fits perfectly.
M-A on the last day of Mother's May.
Mm-hmm.
And we will drop this today.
Yeah.
See what I did there?
I do.
I am an artist.
I'm an artist.
So I'm going to give a shout out of philanthropy to Thomas Jackson.
Awesome.
Who is the spearhead behind the Washington Peer Network. So WashingtonPeerNetwork.org is its own social media platform that also now has an app on the Apple App Store and the Android version to be announced. The Apple App Store dropped first. So if you are in the field, a provider, a peer, an organization, an agency, and you want to be a part of this platform, there's now a database for resumes and putting
cool.
jobs for people that are seeking jobs in the peer field. Become a part of this platform. I do know personally the vision is to go national eventually. So get on board now while we are doing this in the earlier stages. Big shout out Thomas Jackson, and your program manager is Star.
That's
shout out
awesome. Star. I love it. That's a double shout out. I'm gonna triple up on this, but Peer Olympia and Peer Washington in general, this non-for-profit is actually doing what, in my personal opinion, believe non-for-profits are meant to do. And so recently I heard someone say non-for-profits have been exploited. And many of them have. And there are a lot of non-for-profits that really do nothing but create chaos and controversy and all of the politics that revolve around all of the different inner workings. And at the end of the chaotic drama, tea-filled day, they don't help anybody. And they just kind of keep up with the chaos for survival. And that's something that I hope changes in the near future for those non-for-profits. But something that I've noticed is that peer backs up their intentions with their actions always, and is consistently caring about the greater good of everybody involved, be it the people that they serve to the people that are working behind the scenes. Everybody is considered, and growth and development is always what their primary focus is, rather than a bunch of, ridiculous litigations that don't get anybody anywhere. They have a solid formula, and they are impeccable with their words and the way that they navigate the experience. And so I just want to honor them wholeheartedly. I know that they have touched my life, they have touched Bee's, and they've touched many people in our area for the greater good. So I truly appreciate it.
Specifically, again, to Joshua Wallace, CEO, for spearheading a culturally competent, trauma-informed peer organization. And I can personally speak to the fact that as an employee, they care and they take care of their people. That is, in and of itself, the epitome of peer.
Yes.
From the top all the way down, our peers, people with lived experience, people with passion. I happen to know our CEO still coaches today to stay in touch with the peer and the peer work. So cool. Big shout out to everybody involved in Peer Washington. I could list of names: Stephanie Tompkins, Stephanie Lane, Cody. Like, there's just so many. Bree McNeely, Dan. I mean, it goes on and on. People that I know that are doing the work, the family navigators, the recovery navigators, the OBHA, the Andys, the Michelles, the Tishas. There's so many people that are like in a really, really big organization that maintain the integrity and the honesty of what this nonprofit is all about.
It's beautiful. I just recently had an experience to where I was volunteering and doing some peer work, peer advocacy. And as I was asking for help on how to navigate the peer situation, peer advocacy, the people that were helping me were giving me solutions and resolutions and then asking me how they can help me facilitate my own experience. And so it was like right when I went in for help, thinking that they would help just the person that we were trying to help, they were like, no, and you too. Because everybody is a part of the experience, and it's about everybody being treated well and everybody growing in our literal pie, our pursuit of internal evolution, all day, every day, and the impeccability of their work. And like you said, I love the word integrity. It's just pristine. It's a really beautiful place and space. So I appreciate you guys.
All right. So our next segment is the 4 agreements. Be impeccable with your word. Impeccability of the word can lead you to personal freedom, success, and abundance. You can attain the kingdom of heaven from this one agreement. Be impeccable with your word.
Well, this was hand selected for me by the universe. Don't take anything personally. Be immune to others' opinions. What others say and do is a projection of their own reality, their own dream. When you are immune to the opinions and actions of others, you won't be the victim of needless suffering.
We don't need to say any more about that.
Emotional push-up.
Yep. Don't make assumptions. All the sadness and drama you have lived in your life was rooted in making assumptions and taking things personally. The whole world of control between humans is based on that. Take a moment and consider this.
I love it. Always do your best. Take action without expecting a reward. Do your best and take the action because you love it, not because you expect a reward. When you take action without expecting a reward, you enjoy every action, and you can even receive greater rewards than you imagined. Amen.
All right. This is also a monumental milestone. I have already marked the page for Priscilla to read. Keep effing going.
Thank you so much to Joshua Smith
and Jordan Davis.
I love it.
Episode 20 means day 20.
Oh, perfect. So, quiet your mind, visualize positive change, and speak this affirmation with conviction. I embrace failure as a necessary part of the learning process. I'm going to say that again. I embrace failure as the necessary part of the learning process. Action item.
Action item. Let's take some time today to reflect on a past failure or setback. Think about what you learned from it and use that knowledge to move forward with confidence.
Beautiful job, both of you. We appreciate this book so much, and all of you guys can enjoy this book as well as a board game, and I believe maybe a t-shirt or hoodie. You can find them on Amazon for the purchase, and just remember that every time you do purchase something through them, you're also helping their nonprofit.
All right. Daily challenge cards before we head out of here is better than yesterday. Monkey see, monkey do. Look up a habit of someone you admire and try it yourself. It's great to be inspired by the people you look up to. Borrow something that works for them and see if it adds value to your life.
Better than yesterday, a good kind of awkward. Better than yesterday, number 107. Do something you think is awkward today. Speak up, ask someone out, etc. The more you go through awkward or embarrassing situations, the more you realize they have no effect on your worth. I love it.
I love that one too. Okay, as always, we have some self-care cards, kind of along the lines of stress management. The cards are called Stress Less. I actually got them at a leadership convention that had to do with Pierre Washington. Okay, so this one says, breathe thanks. Close your eyes. Focus on breathing at a normal, steady rate. Then, in your mind, repeat thank you on each inhale and exhale. Do this with focus and intent. If this comes naturally to you, You can also think of other things you're grateful for. Breathe this way for 5 to 10 minutes. Gratitude helps us feel positively present in the moment, and that in turn relieves feelings of stress. Told y'all.
Love it.
The attitude of gratitude is a superpower.
Mine says breathe with your diaphragm. Close your eyes and breathe normally. Which part of your lungs are you breathing with? Chest breathing, which is shallow, chest breathing with is shallow, and you do not use your full breathing capacity. Put your hands on your diaphragm and feel your breath. Sometimes your diaphragm might feel tighter than normal. If you feel a tightness, keep doing this exercise for a few minutes. If you do not feel tightness, keep breathing for 5 to 10 minutes. Deep breathing relaxes the body, and focusing on your breathing relaxes your mind. I will say, a lot of people don't even know how to breathe in their diaphragm, so I really hope that everybody tries this exercise. I think that this could heal the world.
Last but not least, we have our bucket list wish list. Okay. This one says, run a marathon.
You want to do that? You interested?
I'm not.
Yeah.
No.
I've thought about doing it.
My life is a marathon.
Right. I've thought about doing it, and then every time I think about it, I think about how I don't really want it that bad. So I just kind of give up on it.
Marathon's a lot of work.
This one's a hootenanny, but it says, buy a house. And maybe we'll take that advice. We'll see how it goes.
I just wanna catch you a dream or two, bring it to reality from me to you, cause they don't understand what belief can do, but I'm the kind of man to make a dream come true.
What's in your bucket list?